Modern men often seem to take more time and care in choosing a suit or a car than they do in selecting a life partner. This could help explain the increasing number of divorces and the deep unhappiness that often affects their children. Though I can't recall where I first encountered this thought, it has certainly stuck with me, and it seems to reflect a painful reality in today's world. Many divorces stem from infidelity, and while male infidelity is often widely condemned, frequently by women, the reasons behind it are typically clear. On the other hand, when women are unfaithful, the issue is sometimes met with more leniency, and women themselves often offer justifications for their actions. So, what leads a woman to cheat? The reasons are many, ranging from a controlling partner to feeling unappreciated, unloved, or unsatisfied in her intimate life. At its core, however, the problem is often the absence of love, the fading of that initial spark. When a woman becomes involved in infidelity, it can often be driven by impulse, with emotions clouding her judgment and leading her to act without fully considering the consequences. In my view, female infidelity can be even more devastating than male infidelity, because it has the potential to unravel the entire family unit. It harms not only the relationship between the partners, but also affects the children, her own parents, and ultimately, the woman herself. All forms of infidelity share one thing in common. The truth eventually comes to light, and most affairs end in much the same way. It's rare to rebuild something meaningful from the pain caused by betrayal, and it's almost impossible to find true happiness after such sorrow. Eventually, the cycle of betrayal often leads to attempts to reconcile with the family, accompanied by pleas of love, regret, and desperate statements like, "I can't live without you and the kids." The endings can vary. Some people accept the prodigal spouse back, while others don't. But regardless of the outcome, a family broken by infidelity will never return to its original state of happiness. I married my beloved girlfriend at the age of 20. She was the same age as me, and our future seemed as bright and clear as could be. Our love story unfolded in a way that seemed straight out of a romance novel. We met at a friend's birthday party, dated for nearly a year, and then married. She was my first love, the one I had fallen head over heels for. When my parents expressed doubts about our marriage, I told them that I would pack my things and move in with her anyway. A year later, we had our first child, a son, and 3 years after that, a daughter. Olivia, my wife, was everything to me. I loved her deeply, and over the years, that love only grew stronger. There was never any reason to suspect her of cheating. She had never given me any reason to doubt her, and I trusted her completely, never needing to keep tabs on her with jealousy, like so many others. Though we had our occasional arguments, they were never explosive, and we always reconciled quickly. Then, after 17 years, everything changed. Olivia became irritable, frequently picking fights for no apparent reason. She radically changed her appearance, turning into a brunette despite knowing that I didn't particularly like that look. She started dressing differently, wearing new perfumes, and staying late at work for reasons that seemed far-fetched. Our intimate life suffered, and changes like these don't just happen without reason. Slowly, I began piecing things together and realized that it all started after she attended her high school reunion. Something about that evening had sparked a shift in her behavior. Curious, I decided to dig a little deeper. I knew a few of Olivia's old classmates and reached out to them casually, hoping to uncover some insight into what had changed. What I discovered was shocking, to say the least. Back in 10th grade, Olivia had had a brief fling with one of her classmates, Alexander. He was everything I was not: handsome, charming, and popular with everyone. After graduation, life took them in different directions. Alexander moved to another city to pursue his studies, married the daughter of a factory director, and had a child. Olivia, heartbroken but determined, moved on and married me. For years, they had lived separate lives, with no contact whatsoever, until fate brought Alexander back to our city for the reunion. When their paths crossed again, it was as if a spark had reignited between them, stronger than ever before. What happened next played out like a predictable cliché, but the pain it caused was no less real. That very night, they reconnected in a way that felt inevitable, and from there, it was as though a dam had broken. Olivia found every excuse to meet with him, weaving lies so intricate that they could have been straight out of a spy novel. By this time, I had already done my research. I knew everything about Alexander, from his name to his address, his job, and everything in between. What remained was catching them in the act, so I could finally confront the truth and end the affair. But let me tell you, I felt utterly filthy inside. The love I once had for Olivia now felt tainted, forever intertwined with feelings of disgust, knowing that another man had been with her. She had shattered the trust and love we had built, leaving me with no illusions about our future together. Before jumping to conclusions, though, I told myself that I needed to remain calm, to think things through before taking any drastic actions. I owed it to our shared history to confront her directly. So one evening, I sat Olivia down and asked her, point blank, about the affair. Her reaction was nothing short of explosive. She lashed out, accusing me of ruining her life, dredging up every grievance she could think of. In her eyes, I was the cause of her misery, and on top of that, I had the audacity to question her integrity. It was a mess, to say the least. I let the conversation simmer for a couple of days, hoping that reason and common sense would eventually prevail. But the more time passed, the more I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Then, one evening, when she casually mentioned working late again, I made my decision. I couldn't sit idly by anymore. I drove to Alexander's place, hoping to find the truth once and for all. He opened the door himself, calm and collected, and when I asked where Olivia was, he simply pointed toward the kitchen. There she sat, casually sipping tea, her posture relaxed as if she had no care in the world. When she saw me, she didn't even flinch. Instead, she scowled and, almost bitterly, said, "Why are you here?" I love him. No sugarcoating, no remorse, just the cold, hard truth. It was over, and in that moment I knew. But still, I tried one last time, appealing to her sense of duty, reminding her of the kids. Her response was chilling. She coldly told me that the children would stay with her and Alexander, but for now, they would live with me until things were sorted out. And with that, the conversation ended. It was all the clarity I needed, though I didn't have the strength to prolong it. I told her it was over, that I wouldn't bring the topic up again, and that the only thing left to discuss was the divorce. I would handle it on my own. Olivia turned her gaze to the window, signaling that as far as she was concerned, the matter was closed. Without a word, I quietly left, stepping into the night air. It had begun to rain, and I pulled up my collar as I trudged along the wet streets, passing houses glowing dimly through rain-drenched windows. That evening is burned into my memory as the last night I was still, technically, married to Olivia. My heart was heavy, my soul raw. Should I have fought harder, tried to win her back? But deep down, I knew it was pointless. She was already gone, lost to someone else. The way she looked at me with those empty, distant eyes, they weren't hers anymore. They belonged to a stranger. The feeling that rose within me was a deep, gnawing sickness, so unbearable that I had to bite down on the sleeve of my coat to stop myself from falling apart. Somehow, I made it back home. The children were waiting for me. I sat them down, trying to explain as gently as I could that their mother had gone away on a long business trip. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, though I knew I would have to eventually. But then my son, with quiet certainty, asked, "Did Mom go to another husband?" I froze for a moment. How could I answer such a question? But in the end, I simply nodded. He wrapped his little arms around me, and we sat there, holding each other in the stillness of the night. Midnight came and went. The next morning, I filed for divorce. The following months dragged on in a fog of paperwork and the mandatory waiting period for reconciliation. Meanwhile, the kids stayed with me, while Olivia hadn't exactly rushed to introduce them to her new partner. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more cliché, she showed up one evening, standing on my doorstep. She looked disheveled, fragile, as if the world had taken its toll on her. She claimed she had left Alexander, that she had come to a grand realization. She had never truly loved anyone but me. She begged for my forgiveness, telling me to do whatever I wanted with her, but not to push her away. I stood there, listening to her words wash over me, but all I felt was nothing. I calmly explained that the man she had once been married to had died that night in Alexander's apartment. Whoever I was now, I wasn't hers anymore. I added that I wouldn't stop her from seeing the children. But as for us, there was no going back. That bridge was burned, reduced to ashes. Her eyes filled with tears, red-rimmed and pleading. And I saw pain, regret, and yes, traces of the love we once shared. But it didn't matter anymore. The love we had was buried too deep under the weight of betrayal. Summoning every ounce of strength I had left, I managed to keep my composure. She turned and left without another word. That evening, Olivia swallowed a handful of pills. Perhaps she thought it would be her way of doing something meaningful. Or maybe she just wanted to punish herself. Her neighbor found her in time and called for help, saving her life. It was a close call. After her release from the hospital, her parents took her in. She reached out to me multiple times, pleading for my forgiveness. Even her mother came to my office, begging me to take Olivia back. Despite the emotional turmoil this caused me, I stood my ground. The decision weighed heavily on my heart and soul, as I was torn between the man I had been and the man I was now. The truth is, I still loved her, more than I ever expressed, and deep down, I knew I would never love anyone the way I loved her. But that love couldn't undo the past. Some wounds are just too deep to heal. Now, Olivia lives with her parents and visits the children regularly, making efforts to repair our fractured relationship. Part of me hopes that one day, I can find it in myself to forgive her, that we might somehow find our way back to each other. Yet, another part of me, scarred by betrayal, knows that I can't. Some people might find it possible to forgive in a situation like mine, but for me, trust that has been shattered can never truly be restored.